It's 18 minutes after the hour. We're starting a minute or two early. I'm delighted to welcome Michael Crow, who's the president of Arizona State University, to join us for our opening conversation this afternoon. President, thank you for being here.
Happy to be here, Casey.
I suspect you've got quite a packed conference schedule.
We've got a lot of things going on. I think I had about 30 meetings during this conference in addition to the conference event, so a lot happening.
And of course, nobody from the press is talking with you.
No one, never.
All right. So I want to frame our conversation a little bit. I've said a couple of times in setting up our conversation that under your leadership during your tenure at ASU, you've done what many would say would be difficult, any one task, let alone all three. Enrollment has grown dramatically, retention and completion rates are up significantly, and research funding has seen significant gains. On top of that, you've done that all even as I live in LA. The Arizona legislature has essentially whacked funding for higher education, public higher education in Arizona, and particularly for the university and also for the community colleges. How did that happen?
It happens as a function of culture change. I mean, I'd add a fourth thing, which is that in addition to enrollment growth, has been massive diversification of the student body in addition to that, including a student body that's now representative of the entire socioeconomic diversity of our region. That's an added to that. So the how has been really focused around the idea of changing the culture of the institution from a faculty-centric culture to a student-centric culture. From a student-centric culture, then one can then alter everything that you're doing and begin to change outcomes, begin to make dramatic changes in what you produce and how it works and so forth. And then to the legislature and others, we say it is their duty and their responsibility to make investments in the institution, but we're moving ahead with or without those investments because we have to make this thing work one way or another. Now that is both empowering to us and in some ways empowering to some of them, because then they say, well, why should we invest at all? But now we're able to go back with our enhanced performance and say, here's why you should invest.
Seems to me that you've walked a line between two very significant forces. One, the legislature, in terms of money and policy, and the other is faculty. We often talk about the faculty are the university, faculty are the heart of the university. Let's focus on the faculty for the moment, because you began by saying that the culture shift was one from being faculty-centric to student-centric.
Yes. That
doesn't happen overnight. In many places, it never happens at all. Again, what's the secret sauce? How did that happen at Arizona State?
So the secret sauce was basically saying, why are we here? So we're teachers and scholars coming together, and are we here just to sort of feed ourselves and produce a few offspring, or are we here to be transformative on a social scale? And so we were able to gather enough energy and enough support from our faculty and ideas from our faculty and commitment from our faculty to say we wanted to be an institution committed to social scale change. Once we made that change, we began to now keep faculty that wanted to be involved in that and attract faculty that wanted to be involved in that. And so it's not in lieu of other models of faculty engagement. It's a new model of faculty engagement, and we're attracting people to that model. We call them super faculty, faculty who have face-to-face students, faculty who have online students, faculty who are heavily enhanced by technology, enhancing their capability, faculty who do research, creativity, scholarship. They're able to do all of those things in a different kind of way.
That suggests a different model of accountability or metrics of faculty performance. Have those changed during
they have changed in the sense that now we're looking for retention across all of our students, whether they come in with A-level performances as high school students, or they come in with B-level performances, or they come in as transfer students from community colleges. And so retention across all family incomes, all ethnicities. And so now all of a sudden there's accountability. We're accountable for the success of the students. You're already self-accountable for your own success as a faculty member. So we sort of take that as a given. Now let's take all that energy and all that talent and make accountability focused on our students.
And then that suggests a change in the algorithm that traditionally has been part of review, advancement, and promotion at research universities, very much focused on research, publications, money, less and less on students. Is it the case that you've expanded the algorithm and I as a faculty member have to do more, or is it the case that I as a faculty member can say, within that algorithm, I'm thinking of Ernie Boyer's notion of scholarship, which is a more expansive or inclusive one, these are the parts that I'm saying are most important for me that align with the university's goals and the goals of my department.
So we have both expanded the net algorithm, that is the integrated algorithm of both the university and the individual units, and then are allowing individual faculty members to have either the complete algorithm or a narrower algorithm that is individually. And so we're allowing teacher scholars to perform at various levels of both We're saying there's no one way to academic success. There's multiple ways to academic success. And so we've enhanced the flexibility and the adaptability of all the algorithms, if you will, from the institution scale to the unit scale to the individual faculty member scale to make it work.
It's often the case, a new president comes in, a new provost, a new senior folks, if you will. You know, the dicta that comes out of the president's office or the provost's office takes a long time to make its way down, not just to the deans and the department chairs, but also the behavior of senior faculty. You're suggesting that, in fact, that has really happened and the culture has shifted dramatically at Arizona State.
Yeah, our faculty now they're the designers of the institution. The senior administration created the design environment, what we call the design aspirations, the overall goal that we're working toward. We honed that and shaped that, and now the faculty are, unlike in many institutions, they're the lead designers. They're driving their academic designs, their program designs, working towards these goals that we've worked on. And so they are freed from the academic bureaucracy of rigid, structured, argumentatively interacting academic units that can't get along. We're sort of past that.
This is the 10th anniversary of the Spellings Commission report that took higher education to task about affordability, accountability, and accessibility. ASU has made dramatic strides on all those. The rest of the world, not so much. We've talked a bit about why that's happened at ASU. I want to explore the flip side of the coin, and you don't necessarily have to name names of institutions or your colleagues, but why has higher ed had such a hard time doing what ASU has done?
I think because we've fallen into two railroad tracks, metal wheels on metal rails. One track is it's all about status, and status is a function of nothing but exclusivity. Exclusive enrollment requirements, very exclusive faculty, etc. And that's fine for private universities. I don't happen to think that it's fine for public universities. And the other track is it's all about access. It's just providing a place for a student to have some opportunity to gain access to a baccalaureate degree. And so I find both the metal tracks, the metal wheels, and both of the contests to be flawed, to be seriously flawed. And so that then has created disincentives for innovation. It's created rigid, structured cultural bureaucracies at levels that are the equivalent of all hard and fixed organizational forms that are out there in our society. And it's just time for some universities and some colleges to move away from that, take your metal wheels off the metal tracks, plot your course for success that you want to have in your community or on the social scale, and then start going without worrying about either status or just being completely related to access and public service only.
But doesn't the legislature worry about status in Arizona? I mean, clearly ASU's status has improved dramatically.
Our status has improved because of our productivity. Our status has improved because of our research successes. Our status has improved because we're providing a research-grade educational platform to a broader cross-section of students. Our status is not included because we admitted a lower percentage of students to the university. We have the same admission standards that the University of California had in the 1950s and 1960s, and we're maintaining those. And so there's a false status that some universities sort of gravitate toward, which is that we are great because so many people apply and we don't admit anyone, or we only take the upper 4% of the high school class or the upper 5% of the high school class. Well, what value is that in a society where we need to get 25 or 30% of the people up to a baccalaureate degree level education?
I want to shift the conversation a little bit. When you and I last talked, I believe a little over a year ago, when we were doing This Week at Inside Higher Ed, we talked about the Starbucks initiative, an alliance that you and Howard Schultz at Starbucks created, an opportunity for Starbucks employees who had had some college, I think the first 2 years, to enroll at ASU, to make progress towards their degree, particularly in your online programs. We're a little over a year later than that. Actually almost 2 years. Where is that now in terms
So we have 5,000 students enrolled in our degree programs. We're going to have between 14 and 18,000 students enrolled from Starbucks. We've agreed to produce 25,000 graduates at no cost and no debt to those graduates. We've expanded that program not to just be college completers, but we're now willing to admit and are admitting first-time, full-time freshmen who are already working at Starbucks, who might be a little bit older,
folks with no prior college,
who never had a chance to go to college, And so what we're finding in all of that is we're getting tremendous outcomes, tremendous energy. Starbucks is seeing transformative scale returns to their local stores, to their retention rates, to the way their company is working, to their commitment to their community. So we're very excited this far in that we've got something that really works. We've got a conscious capitalistic company, Starbucks, that's working with a progressive university to figure out how to do these things. And so we think we've found a model, and we hope that other people will replicate this model.
How's the Starbucks initiative changed over the first 2 years? Again, I'm thinking about our conversation when we talked just after the launch. There was some comment, you could say potentially criticism, one that there was some cherry picking going on. In other words, the program was initially opened only to those Starbucks employees who had at least 2 years of college. So they made it through some of the initial hoops and hurdles of introductory classes. And the second was that the payment plan was an after the fact as opposed to paying it forward in terms of when students would actually be reimbursed.
Yeah. So by the way, we heard lots of comments and lots of criticism, and a lot of it we took to heart and made adjustments. And so now it's not when the person completes their degree that they're reimbursed. It's at the end of a successful semester, each semester. So we altered that. We altered who would be admitted. So now we're willing to admit people at any stage along the continuum. And then subsequent to that, we've also found and developed and deployed a program for Starbucks partners who are not admittable to the university. That is, they don't have the qualifications to be admitted. So you still have to meet our admission standards. And now we have a global freshman academy that we've deployed where students will begin taking classes, independent individual classes, demonstrating their acuity for college level work, and then they can work their way into the university through those classes. And so we've taken each of those comments and each of those criticisms and then found a way to adjust to them and address them. And so we love criticism. Bring it on.
Okay. I need to do a little bit of housekeeping just to remind our audience that we'd welcome your questions. You can key them in, and if you've got a camera and audio, potentially we can even bring you up for a live comment or question for President Crow. The other thing, I want to come back to the Starbucks for one last question. Shortly after the program was launched, there was an interesting article in The Atlantic, which was one of the first outside deep looks as opposed to the initial.
Amanda Ripley wrote that article.
One of the things that struck me about the Atlantic article is it sounded very much that you had found the balance between high tech and high touch.
Yes.
Large parts of higher ed, both during the dot-com era and after, looked at online education as being a high tech delivery. And it struck me that particularly what ASU is doing, and others in some cases are striving to do or yet have to figure out to do, is the importance of it being tech-enabled high touch as opposed to high touch, as opposed to what we think of classroom-based high tech versus high touch.
So two lessons that we've learned in the Starbucks program, both of which we were partially prepared for but not fully prepared for. One was the level of negative feelings embedded in folks who have been to college and didn't finish and carry some financial burden from their lack of success. That then became a barrier to enrollment, a barrier to engagement, a barrier to success, and we've had to spend a lot of energy working on that. And then secondly, and we know this now definitively, it's not just about the content, it's not just about the faculty member, it's about the advising, it's about the counseling, it's about the financial aid support, it's about being able to talk to people face to face on something like Skype or on the phone or in other methods of communication. And so right now we're of the conclusion that it's 1/3 content and 2/3 support. And that's a ratio that we were not familiar with at the level that we are now. And so that's been a wonderful learning experience for us as we've worked to adjust and adapt, because we have the success of our students being our ultimate objective. And so we've been able to work on that. And those are two things that we've worked on and worked to solve that we learned as a result of Starbucks.
Yeah. How does that experience in terms of the online program feed into other things that you do with the campus-based program? Often these are separate worlds at many institutions. Online is a world in and of itself in terms of personnel, program, curricula, even if it's the same course. On campus is a separate world. When you talk, for example, about the support issues that were part of the learning experience early on, has that fed into the conversation and to the policies, planning, resources, and services in terms of campus-based support?
The answer is yes. So for us, it's all the same faculty, all the same advisors, all the same systems, all the same technology platform, just operating in two different modalities: full immersion on campus, technology enhanced, digital immersion online, technology enhanced. That's what we call realm 1 and realm 2 of our learning environments. Both of those realms are completely dependent upon the same assets, and they completely have a very elaborate and sophisticated feedback loop between the two realms.
Yeah, we've got an audience question. The person posing the question doesn't have a webcam. Wants to know if ASU provides accelerated program opportunities in terms of dual enrollment.
We offer a number of different pathways, and one of the pathways is the Global Freshman Academy, where there will ultimately be 20 general education freshman classes that you can enroll in. We offer accelerated those courses to high school students, to community college students, to students at other universities. There's also other pathways and other mechanisms that we can engage in to allow a person to move more quickly. You can take some of our courses online, and when you've completed and mastered the material, you're done with the course, even if it's a short period of time, like 2 weeks. Depends on your mastery of the material. And so we offer different pathways and different ways to move forward.
Yeah. Let's turn to the legislature again. The legislature has not been kind, at least in terms of its funding for post-secondary education in Arizona. Like a lot of other states, it had to deal with the economic downturn, the Great Recession during over the last several years. There's other challenges. There's other competition for money. Sometimes these issues about money for post-secondary education gets political as well. The money issues notwithstanding, how does the legislature view what's happened at Arizona State compared to, for example, the University of Arizona, the other four-year institutions, the community colleges? Is there one voice, or are you separated out and have special status?
Well, I mean, I think that there has been a very positive reaction to ASU by the legislature, notwithstanding their investment. Their investments are really driven by a higher order logic in their mind, one that I don't necessarily agree with, and that is we're going to take care of all these other things first, and then we'll invest in higher education, whatever remains. After we reduce the state's overall investment in all public services. And so I'm like, well, higher education is really important. It should be a first priority. We have not made that case. But having said that, successfully, but having said that, they've been unbelievably generous to us with new authority that we've been given, new independence, new ability to operate as a public enterprise. We've set up an athletic facilities district that allows us to have private developments from which we generate revenue to pay for our athletic facilities, taking those off the burden of the university, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so from that perspective, the legislature has been positive. They've been creative. They've been engaged. They've allowed us to be innovative. And I think that they are recognizing and have recognized the fact that, for instance, we've doubled the number of graduates and quadrupled the level of research in a short period of time, all to the benefit of the state, and done so on a level of efficiency that's been previously unattainable. They now see that, and I think we're going to see more possible investments as a part of our changing that equation.
Okay. About the changing of the equation, actually, we've got an audience question was the one that was going to be my next question.
Okay.
We can bring that up. How is it that others want to replicate what you're doing? My guess is you get lots of emails, you get lots of campus visits. Others would like to figure out the secret sauce, find out what part of the ASU sauce they can bring to their own institutions to do some or all of what you have, what's occurred under your leadership at ASU.
So several things. So one, we have been visited by more than 150 colleges and universities from around the world taking a look at what we're doing, and that's been both productive to us and I think to them. That we're pushing out a lot of new ideas. The book that William DeBars and I wrote on the New American University. We also have a University Innovation Alliance funded by foundations, 11 large public research universities. I'm the chairman of this alliance.
We're actually going to be talking with Bridget Burns tomorrow.
Who's the executive director of the alliance. Great, perfect. And so that alliance is a way to innovate together, learn from each other, and then project those innovations. And so we're working. We also have a leadership group and leadership academies that are operating that are out there with Georgetown and ourselves. So we've got a lot going on, a lot happening, and we understand that we have a lot to learn from others. Others have some to learn from us, and let's all work together on that.
Mm-hmm. This conference began at ASU. Deborah Quazzo was with us yesterday for a conversation. She talked about the first conference being effectively 300 people in a cafeteria. Either Deborah said that in the booth, or Michael Moe also mentioned it in his opening comments yesterday. What's the significance? I mean, this is a big gathering, a lot of folks. I mean, what was surprising to me is the demography. Despite the assumption that it's a lot of investors and startups and mature companies, there's a significant presence. Deborah was quite adamant about the importance of having people from K-12 and higher ed here as part of the mix.
Right.
How do you move cup to lip in this conversation? Can you point to things that are conversations here that are now showing up at schools in Arizona or colleges?
Just using our, so we have over 100 partnerships that are derivative of these conferences. We have, and I know everyone else that's here, they're working on ideas, doing deals in universities, colleges, tool makers, ed tech system providers, investors, others. I mean, this is a fantastic way to learn from each other, but our hope and the way the meeting is set up is that it's also a place to do deals, to make things happen. And so deals have been happening. They are happening constantly. Fantastic things. We've got people here, 7 or 8 people are here from the World Bank, looking for solutions and trying to put together innovation groups while they're here searching for those solutions. They're not just here just listening, they're trying to organize responses. And so we think it's a really, really exciting opportunity, and it's fulfilling all of the reasons that we put this conference together several years ago, which is to create an opportunity to advance, not just discuss innovation, but to do it.
Last question. There's an election coming up in the fall. Not asking you about the candidates, but I think it's fair to say there's been more posturing than policy on both sides. If you got them all in a room, or if they were asked you to come to a briefing and you had 10 minutes uninterrupted to give them your worldview, what are the policy issues that the presidential candidates really need to address that's been missing from the conversation?
I think we haven't found a way yet to take the billions of dollars that are being invested by the national government and the billions of dollars being invested by the state governments and looking at their role as potential national leaders. I would say it's all about, at the end of the day, accountability and outcomes. Everyone should be accountable for their outcomes. If a large private university is getting huge tax relief to build their endowment, well, what are they contributing back to society? Not just for their own internal working of their institution. If you're an institution like ASU and you have 40,000 Pell eligible students, and how are you doing with them? How are they succeeding? And you should be both incentivized and held accountable for those returns on those investments. And so if one changes those equations, you can get tremendous policy outcomes. You can get tremendous returns on investment. And so what we have is we have too simplistic of a model. We have a model where there's low levels of accountability. We have a model where you don't have to graduate anyone and you still get the resources. You've got models with high debt default rate in some types of institutions. People must be accountable for these things. So to me, it would be all about performance-based funding, accountability, and then it would also be about finding ways to encourage this thing that we must overcome. 15% or less of the people in the lower half of family incomes are attaining baccalaureate degrees, and we're getting very uneven outcomes in terms of associate degrees and so forth and so on based on family incomes. That's got to be changed, and therefore it can't just be about paying for things. So we have had Pell Grants for 35, 36 years, 37 years. Half the people that receive the Pell Grant don't have any degree or any certificate whatsoever from any institution.
Right.
We need to step back, rethink all of these things, and say that's not going to be the way it's going to work in the future. So
you're talking about a fundamental change. In the past, it was the student who was held accountable for performance. You're really talking about accountability in big capital letters and large fonts on the part of the institution.
Absolutely. That's what I would push with all of them.
Great. Michael Crow, president of ASU, thank you very much for your time.
Happy to be here.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. We're going to take a quick break, and we go on to our next conversation in a moment.